Okay, my name is Howard Eber, and I am an alcoholic. Welcome to week number 51 of this cycle of the Big Book Comes Alive Step Study Workshop. We've been going since COVID started, and even before that, I think we go back about 15 years of doing this on Sunday evenings and some other evenings during the week. And we didn't always have 100 people showing up. I love to look at that clicker and see, because there were nights that it was Anita, me, and one or two other people, and that's it. So thank you. Thank you for your interest in recovery. And we're serious about it here. Okay, I need another light here. I'm sorry, I lost the light. Okay, is that okay? Yeah, I think it is. Okay. Um, last week we did something a little different. We did a group guided meditation led by Tara Brack. One of the handouts that went out last week was also in this week's email. Andy, if you wouldn't mind putting up what number is it? 622, the guided meditation with Tara. I strongly suggest you give it a try. Do this on your own. I do it all the time, and it's extraordinarily effective. And there are a couple of others that I've put down here. George Lewis is an 11 step, of course, Mark Houston, and Tara has another one. She's got a lot of guided meditations. So jump on, see what you think of them. I think it'll come in handy. And if you want to take it a step further, Andy, let's look at 622. If you don't need the guiding, if you've kind of got to that point where, okay, I could just kind of tune into it, turn on to it, get in sync with it. Maybe it helps to sometimes have the right background. So I've given a couple of examples here of sounds that I use that come in quite handy. And these are not extended jams. These are specifically made for meditation, and it's very conducive to that. So I gave you some Spotify and YouTube, and you could find it quite anywhere. So check that out. Thank you for doing that. Just out of curiosity, quick show of hands, has anybody tried to do that during the week, going back and listen to Tara Brach? Michael, Amanda? Okay, that's great. That's great. What'd you think of it, Mike? Michael?
Absolutely excellent. Truly resonated with what she had to say.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. I think Amanda? No? Okay, how about Ben?
Yeah, hi. I've been away on a retreat. I came to believe in a 10th century monastery. I had a lot of peaceful time, and I really love it. It's really you know
That's wonderful.
the environment and that wonderful.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy, Ben. Amanda, let me try and unmute you again. Amanda H. There we go. I'm trying to unmute you. There we go.
Hi. Yeah, no, it's really good. Really like it. It's definitely helped me a lot. I get on with that meditation. Really good. Thank you.
And just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. Let's kind of go back to where we finished up last week. I want to go back to the spiritual experience appendix 2 at the back of the book. And we kind of rushed a little bit towards the end last week. And I mentioned I believe it was 14 references to the words change. spiritual experience, spiritual awakening, personality change, upheaval, sudden changes, sudden and spectacular upheavals. And I don't need to go through all of them. You've got it from last week. If you don't, you can easily get it from other group members. But the point being that what he's trying to put across is that this is all about change. That we come in here restless, irritable, discontented, all of the things that you hear. We're filled with self-hatred and self-centered thoughts, and we do this work and we wind up with, as human beings, with certain degree of peace of mind and serenity and happiness, and we tend to give a damn about other people. If that's not a radical upheaval, at least it is for me. I don't know what is, and it came as a result of doing this work. One of the things that we talked about in the first paragraph was, well, first of all, if there's any doubt left, the difference between spiritual experience and spiritual awakening is time, the time element. That's all. One happens gradually over a period of time as a result of doing this work of the educational variety, is what we called it. And the other one is this sudden upheaval, this white light moment. And I realized last week when we were talking about this, that I skipped over something that I should have pointed out. You know, if you ask most people, where in the book does Bill tell you how long it should take to work the steps? Do you ever think about that? I did. And I didn't find it until last week. It's at the bottom of the first page of the spiritual experience appendix, 4 lines up, 5 lines up. He says, what often takes place in a few months through working the steps could seldom have been accomplished by years of self-discipline. Self-discipline. Don't drink and go to meetings. I've been going over that line for years, and it never dawned on me. That's one of those lines that wasn't in my book the day before we did this last week. I'm sorry. I read it Sunday. It wasn't there Saturday. I never saw that line before. But it's telling us it takes time to do this. And it doesn't have to take a lot of time, because he also says that it happens sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. And that's based on the motivation. How free do you want to be? That's what it comes down to. How free do you want to be? One other note of caution I didn't get to mention last week. When it comes to spiritual experience, which is, again, a sudden white light, burning bush moment, be careful. Be very careful. Because it's very easy for addicts and alcoholics to compare the sudden experience with instant gratification. We're not talking about instant gratification. It's not that. Few experiences are of less value than fast sobriety. That was in one of my daily meditation books back in March. I'll repeat it again. Few experiences are of less value than fast recovery. And it just takes doing the work. It's easy to get discouraged. You know, we have unrealistic expectations. We expect it to happen suddenly, and when it doesn't, we think we're doing things wrong, and we're not. But just be patient and know that you're on the right path. That's all. Do the work. With every opportunity you have, set yourself a date every night at a certain time. The TV goes off, the computer goes off, set 15 minutes to do whatever step work you need to do. If it's reading, if it's meditating, if it's writing, set aside a time, a date with yourself, so you can end the day with these thoughts, which is actually where we're going to be starting today. So let's go back to where we were. I believe we were on page 86 before we jumped over here. And I want to go back a little bit beyond that, just to kind of set the stage. On the previous page, we start off with those 9-step promises. And one of the things that we talk about when we talk about the 9-step promises is how it's a measurement of our spiritual growth from before we started working the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th step. What was life like then? And you'll find it in the bedevilments. That's what life was like then. It's a perfect description of what that's like. But sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh, the 10th step says we do a moral, a personal inventory. We have a 4th step that has a moral inventory, and a 10th step that has a personal inventory. Do you ever think about the difference between those two things? I did. And fortunately, my mentor, Charlie Parmley, was alive at the time, and we had a chat about it. And I'll tell you what I said, and I'll tell you what he said. See, Charlie Parmley taught me that when we get to the 9th step, we are getting healthy. We are getting in harmony. We are getting right in the 3 basic dimensions: spiritual, the first 3 steps; mental, 4, 5, 6, and 7; physical, 8 and 9. So as a result of doing those 9 steps, we are perhaps for the first time in our life healthy, spiritually, physically, mentally healthy. But moral inventory, when we defined moral and breaking down the 4th step, we said moral was truth. So what we do in the 4th step is we make a searching and fearless list of truths about ourselves, which is a pretty accurate description of what we do in step 4. We make lists and lists and lists of truths. Not anything ugly, not anything terrible to look at. It's just truth. And based on that truth, we share it in 5, we apply it in 6 and 7, and learn to change. And then in 8 and 9, we get right with the world around us. And we get to the 9th step. And the 9th step, Andy, if you'll give me 613, 3 dimensions of life. We've gotten right physically, mentally, spiritually, as a result of working the steps in this order. Spiritually, 1, 2, and 3; mentally, 4, 5, 6, and 7; and 8, 9 for physical, the world and everything in it. So we have gotten healthy, we have gotten in harmony, we have gotten right in the 3 basic dimensions of life, which means we are walking in a new atmosphere. We have entered the world of the spirit, is what Bill calls it, which incidentally, as I mentioned last week, is not in the plain language big book. I don't know why they didn't put that line in there, but it's indispensable. But they dispensed with it. In any case, side issues. So we get right in those 3 basic dimensions of life. We get in harmony spiritually, mentally, and physically. And I told Charlie, you taught me that. You taught me everything that's on this page. Charlie Parmley taught me, rigorously taught me, pounded it into my head. And I said, think about this. The 10th step has the word personality in it, right? I have a personal inventory. Sorry, not personality, personal. I looked it up and found a definition in a dictionary that I found very interesting and very revealing. It defined personality as the makeup of the way we think and feel. And here's where it gets real creepy. Our attitude and outlook upon life, people, places, things. These are the traits which constitute the distinction of one person from another. So basically, we are getting in harmony in these three basic dimensions. And so the 10th step is an effort to keep us in harmony spiritually, mentally, and physically. We've already arrived at that point by doing the steps in order, but we have to have a guide beyond here. Thank God Bill gave us these, you want to call them relapse prevention steps. Please don't call them maintenance steps, because maintenance means to maintain something, to keep it the same. And we don't want to stay the same. We want to continue growing. So I think that, and when I told Charlie that, there was a silence. And then he said, you know what? You might be right. Those were some of the sweetest words I ever heard in recovery. Charlie Parmley found something I said that was based on what he taught me. Found it interesting. So I'm passing that along, just as a difference between the moral inventory, which is a list of truth, and a personal inventory, which is in keeping us in harmony in these three basic dimensions of life by working 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Just a thought. What else did I want to tell you about that? I think I covered most of it. Let's get back to page 85. Sorry for jumping around, but we did end kind of abruptly last week. So, okay, middle of the page 85, after the promises. And again, I like to think of them as not promises, as observations. This is what life is like in the fourth dimension of existence. It's like we're in a bus and we're driving around this neighborhood, this fourth dimension of existence. And look what we see. Look what we see. We feel as we've been placed in put in a place of neutrality, safe and protected. It's just, in any case, and I know that's the 10th step, promises, incidentally, but it's just these promises. So, middle of the page, Bill points out that it's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our ass. I know it says laurels, but to me it's the same thing, resting on your ass. Laurels are just, in the Olympics, early days of Olympics, the wreath that used to be given to the person who won that event, and that showed his accomplishment. And if someone was sitting on it, resting on his laurels, he's resting on his accomplishments, which is not very productive. So it's easy to let up on, and you probably should underline the spiritual program of action. And above it, I've written the business of steps 10, 11, and 12. That's the business at this point. We're headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. We are not cured. Please underline those words. We're not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. And as one word, I wish they would have changed from maintenance to continued growth, but be that as it may, it's there. Every day is a day when we must is in green, it's a must, carry the vision of God's will into all. Let's circle all our activities. Not just when we feel good, especially when we don't. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. That's the 10th step prayer that just restates the decision we made in step 3. These thoughts must go with us constantly. And I've highlighted the last 2 sentences, We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It's the proper use of the will. Please underline those last words. It is the proper use of the will. And we can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. Our willpower, our thoughts, our thought power, our thinking. And remember, we talked a lot about the fact that our actions are all based on our thinking. All action is born in thought. I can't reach over and pick up this pen without my brain communicating it in thought to my arm, to my hand, to my fingers, to commit to the action of picking up that pen. All action is born in thought. And I know there's a lot of people who say that you could act your way into good thinking. And I'd like to point out that if you do that, that means you've thought about it and you've made a decision to do it, which means it starts as an idea. It starts as a thought. I think I can act my way into good thinking. It shows it starts with a thought. Be that as it may, let's continue. It's the proper use of the will. Our powerlessness, in a sense, has been restored. Much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction. Please underline that word direction, not suggestions. Remember, Bill agreed to take directions out of the wording of the third step. But once he took it out there, he put it right back into the narrative all through the rest of the book. Because the deal he made was up until the third page of how it works, he would do that with them. But from that point on, he was the final arbiter of the book, and he wasn't going to be arguing about every word here and there. So he put the directions back in, took out the suggestions that they wanted, and put in directions. Bill was clearly giving directions. He was not making suggestions. He was telling us what to do. And direction from him who has all knowledge and power. And you may want to highlight the rest of this paragraph in pink, because it is a prayer. If we have carefully followed direction, not suggestions, directions, we've begun to sense the flow of his spirit into us. Please underline, sense the flow of his spirit into us. And let's underline, to some extent, we have become God conscious. Please circle the words God conscious. Right underneath it, please circle the words sixth sense and put a little equal sign between those two circles, because that's what God consciousness is. It is our sixth sense. Everything I know, I learned, I accessed through my five senses, what I can see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. But I have to establish a manner of communication with my Creator, and those five senses just don't fit the bill enough. So I have to find another way to do it. And fortunately, like everything else, Bill tells us. We have begun to develop this vital sixth sense. Vital, remember, we defined as something that was life-giving. But we must go further, which is more action, and that means more action. Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. Please underline prayer, please underline meditation, and circle the word and. It's not or, it's and. And above prayer, I've written talking. That's when I talk to God. I speak to God. This may be way off topic, but back in the early days of Fleetwood Mac, when it was Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac, not this other thing that it became with everyone hopping in a bed together, when it was originally this extraordinarily gifted guitarist named Peter Green. And he wrote a song that contained the line. The name of the song is Oh Well. And there's a lyric in it that says, when I talk to God, I know he understands. He says, stick by me and I'll be your guiding hand. I love that. I love that. Unfortunately, Peter went off the deep end, but that doesn't discount the value of what he said. I really believe that. When I talk to God, I know he understands. And what I get immediately is he's listening. I know he's listening. So let's continue. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Oh, let's define it. It's like in the bottom of the page, there's some clearance. Let's define prayer. And I found an interesting definition was prayer is the conscious dwelling on the being of God. Conscious dwelling on the being of God. I guess you could say on the entity of God. And prayer is talking, and meditation is listening for the answer. In 1939, the definition was closer to thoughtful contemplation. We've gotten a lot of Easternization. It's taken on other dimensions, and that's fine. Whatever works for you. But that's what it was originally, prayer and meditation. You remember back on page, I think 47, Bill mentioned that, when we mention God, we your definition of God. Oops. Okay. Rach, can you take that down? No offense. Okay. Yeah, okay, let's get back to work. Sorry about that. So as I said, prayer was defined, I found, as conscious dwelling upon the being of God. Meditation was thoughtful contemplation. And on page 47, Bill mentions that when we speak of God, we mention we mean your conception of God. And then he says, and that also applies to other spiritual terms you will find in this book, which to me means, among other things, prayer and meditation. Nobody defines that for me. It is prayer as I understand it. It is meditation as I understand it. It is my method of communication with my Creator. Yours may not work for me. I tried a lot of other ways. I tried a lot of organized religion ways. It wasn't working for me. It was when I was finally told what a liberating thing it was that I could have my own conception of God. That when I talk to him, he understands. That's just superb stuff. Okay. And here's another thing about prayer. I don't mean to sound too pedantic about this, but there are times when I found that my prayer was becoming rote, that I was saying words and I wasn't feeling them as much as I thought I should. And Emmett Fox wrote a book called Around the Year. And he said, those who pray like a parrot, and a parrot is just repeating the same thing over and over and over again. Those who pray like a parrot inevitably make the parrot's demonstration, which is remaining in the cage. There's it. There's the book, Around the Year. I think it's on page December 6th, Michael. December 6th. But that's pretty heavy. Those who pray like a parrot inevitably make the parrot's demonstration, which is they stay stuck in the cage. They don't get free. It's an interesting thought, huh? I think so. Okay, so back to the bottom of the page. Step 11 suggests prayer, which is talking, and meditation, which is listening. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men than we are using it constantly. It works if we have the proper attitude. Let's circle that word, attitude, and work at it. And let's circle work at it, or highlight it in yellow. What does he mean by proper attitude? Well, I don't know that I have an answer. I have a couple of suggestions that have all made sense to me. That the proper attitude, the simple one, is faith. I have to maintain an attitude of faith. Faith is knowledge, certainty, surety, and lots of experience. That's what faith is. So the proper attitude is to have that faith. Or if we expand it a bit, how about being self-forgiving, humble, and honest? Self-forgiving, humble, and honest. How about God will do for us what we could not do for ourselves, but he would not do what we could do for ourselves? How's that for an attitude? That we rely on God to do the things for us that we cannot do. And the things that we can do, we do. God's not my errand boy. So just a thought on the attitude, and work at it. That to me is a lot easier to grasp. Working at it means, how did you do at step 10? And that's what I've written above work at it. Step 10. And I say that for a number of reasons, one of which is what we're about to get into. So working at it to me is in the course of the day, putting my 10th step to work. And if we remember, what is the 10th step? The 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th step, all rolled into one. And I challenge anybody to work those steps on a daily basis and not grow spiritually. I don't think that's possible. But in any case, it's easy if we have the proper attitude and work at it. It would be easy to be vague on this matter, yet, and please highlight this last sentence in pink, it is a promise. We believe we can make some definite, valuable suggestions. Let me see where I want to take you now to. Andy, could you give me, I think it's 627. It's a step 11 review sheet. Step 11, sort through prayer and meditation, again, which is speaking and listening, to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. That is jam-packed. That is some heavy stuff. So if we remember that prayer is talking, I'm sending that message out to God. And meditation is I'm listening for the answers. That God consciousness, that vital sixth sense. And again, the five senses, see, hear, taste, touch, and smell, don't accomplish the communication channel that I need with my creator. Charlie Parmalee said, everything I know I learned from these, but what little bit I've learned through my five senses is just a small amount of knowledge. Now, if God has all knowledge and all power, and if I can tap into him, then I can handle any situation in the future with God's help, whatever it might be. And you develop the sixth sense through prayer and meditation. Andy, can we go up a little bit? Yeah. We ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought or decision. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. We're often surprised how the right answers come after we've tried this for a while. I know we haven't gotten to that yet, but it is. We'll read it. What used to be a hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. There's a great condensation of the sixth sense. Remember, we said last week we were talking about common sense becomes uncommon sense. That what used to be the first thought, which is me, 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 what's in it for me? That was the common thought. That was the first thought. That was my first impression. That now becomes second. The uncommon thought, which is to give a damn about you, that now becomes the common thought. So we've changed this process. And here's a little interesting quote I found in Ed Webster's book, The Little Red Book. He said, we improve our conscious contact with God when we forgive and help others. And Charlie Palmley and Joe McCoy and Joe McQueenie refer to this 11th step as our start the day, end the day, and everything in between, developing a sixth sense step. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. Okay, let's get back to the book for a moment. Okay, top of the page of 80, top of page 86. Sorry. I'm going to suggest that you highlight the whole page. Everything on the page, just highlight it in yellow. And we're going to go back and over highlight some things in pink and shit. But it just makes life a whole lot easier. Just highlight the whole page in yellow. Because this is heavy stuff. So, when do we start? When do we start working the 11th step? You know, I used to think that the 11th step was something I did at night in bed before I went to sleep, right? And if I believe that the 10th step is my daytime walking around step, the step I use in the course of the day to deal with the events of the day, I have to remember, possibly because I'm getting older, I don't get in trouble in bed at night anymore the way I used to. So to me, that's not the way to approach this step. The get me out of a jam is 10. 11 is something else. So let's continue. So the first thing he tells us to do, the start of the 11th step is at night, when we retire at night. And we let's underline, we constructively review our day, and constructively is just taking a positive inventory, Here's the questions we ask. You may want to number them. Number 1, were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? What step does that sound like? How about 4? So he's telling us at the end of the day, we start by asking ourselves how we did throughout the day with the 10 step. And that really, to me, is the essence of the 10th step, of the 11th step. It begins by asking us, how did you do today with the 10th step? 10th step is that daytime walking around step. It's the one we use to get out of jams or whatever. It is the daytime get me out of it prayer, if you want to look at it that way. So if we are starting it at night, the first thing we're going to do is ask ourselves throughout the day, how did we do it, what I call the Fantastic Four? Because he brings them up over and over and over. It's resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid. How did I do with those things? And that's basically 4th step material, or in this case, 10th step. Do we owe an apology? Please underline owe an apology and put number 2 next to that. That's steps 8 and 9. Everyone agree? Okay. 3, Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person at once? Please underline should be discussed with another person at once. And above it, I've written step 5 because that's what it sounds like. Number 4, were we kind and loving towards all? Please circle that word all. And next to it, I've written, how's my driving? How has my driving been today? Have I managed to keep the window down and all 5 of my fingers in a fist without throwing one of them at somebody? How did I do today in the car? How did I do today in the grocery store? In the express line, which is 12 items or less, and I've got 5 or 6 items, and the old lady in front of me has a cart full, maybe 100 items. Where's my program now? Well, I find something that I can do to be of service to that person. Help her carry it, help her unload the basket. That's what I'm supposed to do. So, were we kind and loving towards all? That's a tough one. Here's number 5. What could we have done better? Let's underline that whole line. What could we have done better? Number 6, were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? Or, here's number 7, were we thinking of what we can do for others? Like I said, figure out something I can do to help this person. Unload the cart, carry the stuff out to the car, whatever. Something. 8, of what we could pack into the stream of life. In other words, was I contributing or taking? Was I a giver or a taker today? I spent most of my life taking. What's in it for me? Why should I do it? It's me, the AA opera. Well, was I thinking more along the lines of contributing, or was I continuing to take and take and take? But we must, and there's a must, circle in green, be careful not to drift into worry, let's underline that, remorse, let's underline that, or morbid reflection, let's underline that. Why? Because that would diminish our usefulness to others. Please underline usefulness to others. And above it, I've written our real purpose. In fact, I've got a little bit more than that. I've written our real purpose. See page 77. So keep your place right here where we are for a moment. And let's go back to page 77. The first paragraph, which I call 0. The third line says, our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. There it is. That's what my job is to do. So let's go back to the sentence where he said, we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, and morbid reflection. I think I've got an interesting way to look at this. Worry, to me, implies the future. Stop worrying about the future, Howard. You can't do anything about it. You don't have any tools to deal with the future. God didn't give you any tools for that. He gave you tools to deal with today. So looking ahead, worrying, which means to me, it's worrying about what hasn't happened. It's the future. Remorse, it's about the past. The things that I've done that I regret, that I need to make amends for. Or morbid reflection, which to me is present. In the present, Mark Houston defined anxiety as identifying in one's mind with some point in the future or some point in the past and our inability or unwillingness to meet ourselves where we are, which is in the present. So I think Mark Houston is just saying exactly what Bill said here, is to not drift into the future, the past, and stay here where we are today. Because if we don't, it's going to diminish our usefulness to others. And as we've just seen, that's our real job. That's what we have to do, is be of service. Continuing on page 86. After making our review, you may want to underline that word after. After making the review, and please, I know you highlighted it already, but over highlight this last sentence in pink. We ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. We ask God for forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. I've underlined corrective measures. I've circled the word forgiveness. Then above it, I've written steps 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Takes in a lot of real estate there. What measures should be taken? Let's pause for a moment on that, and let's take a look at a couple of things that I've got for you. What do I want to start with? I want to start with let's start with Andy, if you give me 625. Now, what I've got here are two 11th step worksheets. You want to make a bunch of copies? When I first started doing this, I did that. I had a few in my bureau drawer next to my bed. And I would write, I would check things off. But it got to a point where I didn't need to do that. It was rote. I could do it. But what we've done here is broken it down into exactly what we're being asked to do. Simple. Was I resentful? Yes or no? If yes, how? Was I selfish? If yes, how? These incidentally should all be in your emails that I sent out. If you didn't get it, please let me know. This is important stuff, and I'll make sure you get it. But it was sent in the email. So was I selfish today? Yes or no? Was I dishonest? Yes or no? The meeting does go longer than an hour. It ends at 6:30 in 25 minutes. Someone's asking. If you got the meter running, you got to throw some quarters in the machine. Was I dishonest today? Yes or no? If yes, how? Was I afraid? Yes or no? If yes, how? Do I owe an apology? If yes, to whom and why? Was I kind and loving towards all? Yes and no, or no? Was I thinking of myself most of the time? Was I thinking what I could do for others? Was I thinking what I could pack into the stream of life, which is the wording that Bill used, but we can alternate it into, was I being useful to others? Was I contributing or taking? I think that just summarizes it a little better, a little bit more clearly. Was this the one I wanted? There's two of them I have. I think this one that I just went over with you came from Joe and Charlie. And they have a second part of it in a moment. I'll show it to you. But it said he's got in the directions we just read, there's a mention of praying for, asking for corrective measures. What do we do to correct these things that we botched up today? Well, here's just a thought. God, if I've been frightened, irresponsible, inconsiderate, dishonest, selfish, self-seeking, or judgmental, please help me be, and this is the opposite of every one of those words, courageous, responsible, considerate, honest, giving, humble, and accepting? Or how about instead of accepting, put intolerant, compassionate, patient, forgiving, with love and goodwill towards my fellow man, so that I might be more useful to you and others. Please guide me to correct whatever it is that needs taking corrective action. What should I do to correct this? Bearing in mind, this is being done at night before we go to bed. This is all upon retiring. On the other side of the page is this little checklist that Joe and Charlie used before that other one. This was their original one. And you just check off whether things are on the left side of the page or the right side of the page. The self-will stuff is on the left. God's will is on the right. So you could say that on the right is 11th step stuff. And we're going through the same things. Selfish and self-seeking, yes or no? Was I interested in others, or was I selfish and self-seeking? And we don't need to go through every one of those, but I think you get the point. There's a lot of different ways to do this. The point is to do it. Angie, let me take a look, if you will, at 625. It's the one that says 11-step daily review of pages 86 to 88. I think it was right next to that other one that I sent. Like I said, I have is 625, 620, 620. I said the wrong number. I'm sorry. 620. Do you have
What's the
that?
file called? What's the file called? There's no 620.
11-step daily review of pages 86 to 88. While you're looking for it, I'll go dig it out here. This is 620. There we go. All right, if you like, Andy, I could put it up.
Got it from last week.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was last week. You're right. We didn't get to it last week. There we go. And this I got from one of my favorite circuit speakers, who's no longer a circuit speaker. He's retired, a guy by the name of Milt Loring from Chicago. And that's the way he pronounces it, so that's the way I'll pronounce it. If you go to any of the speaker sites that have been around for a while, just put in Milt L from Cleveland. I guarantee you will be moved to hysterics and to tears. He's an extraordinary speaker. But this was he did a weekend, a big book step study weekend that he called the Big Book Study for Idiots. That's the way Milt liked to look at himself. He's an idiot. When we retire at night, was I resentful? If so, do that inventory. Take it out of the back of your head. Who? What did they do? Basic instinct, and actually it could be 4-column inventory. Was I resentful? Was I selfish? Egotistical, self-seeking, dishonest? Afraid? Do I owe an apology? Have I kept something to myself which should be discussed with another person? Again, I don't need to go through it all. I think you get the point. And at the bottom of the page, after making our review, Andy, can you scroll it up a bit? Here we go. We ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. Let's hold off on that. Let's get back to the book. We're back on page 86 in the middle. And I've underlined the first two words, on awakening. Bill is now going to tell us what to do in the morning. At the end of the day, we constructively review our day and basically ask, how'd you do, Howard, with step 10 today? Were we on this side or that side? On awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. I'm going to suggest you underline that and double underline the word think. Think about the 24 hours a day. And the reason why that word think is so important is the next sentence. And please underline, we consider our plans for the day. You may want to circle consider. And someone in one of the workshops suggested that that should be in green because it's a must, that we consider our plans for the day. We don't make our plans for the day because God may have an entirely different agenda for us. So if we make plans for the day, what's the joke? If you want to see God laugh, make a plan, right? So we consider our plans for the day. But before we begin, I love the way Bill does this. He tells us on awakening, this is what we got to do. But then wait. Before you do that, there's something else you got to do. Before we begin, and this is over highlighted in pink, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, self-seeking motives. We ask God to direct our thinking. Let's circle that. Direct our thinking. We're asking for direction, period. And we ask especially that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Self. Ever heard of doing the wrong thing for the right reason? On page 61, Bill told us, even in our best moments, meaning when our motives are right, are we not the source of confusion rather than harmony? So we're looking at that. Under these conditions, and you may want to underline that, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave us brains to use. And let's highlight this in pink. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. Be on a higher plane, be on a higher spiritual plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. Self. What's in it for me? Be careful of good motives, because we can convince ourselves that we're doing the right thing because our motive is right, and it winds up causing more damage than anything else. Probably a good idea to talk to your sponsor besides praying about it. Then he says, in thinking about our day, we may face indecisions. For example, doing the wrong thing for the right reason. We may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Let's highlight this in pink. We ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought or action. I have circled inspiration, underlined thought or decision. It's kind of a meditation. Tells us what to do if we're undecided, if we have an indecision, we're not sure which way to go. Yeah, both. We relax and take it easy. Let's underline that. We don't struggle. Relax and take it easy. What does that mean to me? Basically, simple is move a muscle, change a thought. Get back to the issue later. Get away from it for now. Think about something else. It's amazing how those lost keys all of a sudden turn up in a place where you've looked 20 times for it. So move a muscle, change a thought, occupy your mind with something else, and then come back to it. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. Please underline, we don't struggle. We don't struggle to me means self-will versus God's will. I'm struggling to try and find a way to justify what I'm doing as God's will. Ben, I see you. We'll get to you. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. We're often surprised how the right answers come. Please underline this because it takes time after we have tried this for a while. There's been a few other references to that. Back on page 84, Bill told us we grow in understanding and effectiveness over time. Later on page 64, he tells us, he reminds us this is not an overnight matter. It should be continued for our lifetime. And I've got another suggestion here. This, in the second line, third line, he says, we ask God for inspiration. And at one of the workshops, someone suggested, let inspiration take the place of aspiration. Seek to grow spiritually rather than acquiring fame and riches. So take the place, let inspiration take the place of aspiration. Going after things, improving ourselves, our riches. Just a thought. We are often, after we have done this for a while, we won't finish the paragraph, chapter. Top line on 87 is in pink. It's an 11-step promise. We may make it. What used to be a hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a part of the working mind. In other words, sixth sense. It becomes a sixth sense. Being still experienced and having just made conscious contact with God. Remember, we went through that sheet last week about making contact with God, where we start off by searching diligently, and then we become conscious of his presence, and then we feel the nearness of our Creator. This is all in last week's handouts. And then we've begun to sense the flow of his Spirit into us. We have entered the world of the Spirit. This is all in last week's email stuff. It's not probable that we're going to be inspired at all times. Please highlight the rest of the paragraph. We might pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Be careful of, we will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. Again, let's be careful of motives. Let's watch our motives. But I have a kind of a story on that. There was someone in my home group back in Connecticut. Guy was a relative newcomer, and he was always late for the meetings. Oh, and he didn't come in quietly. He always disturbed the meeting. And one day he was on the way home. Someone was giving him a ride, and they passed on the block, I think next to his house or whatever. Right on the lawn was this Corvette with a great price on it, saying it was on sale. So this guy said, this is God. This is God's telling me how I'm going to get to meetings on time. That wasn't there this morning. It wasn't there yesterday. He put it there now so that I could see it. And he conned his mother into giving him the money to buy the car, and the end is predictable. We never saw him again. But we may do some absurd, ridiculous things, telling ourselves, this must be God's will. Nevertheless, we find that our thinking as time passes, let's underline that, be more and more on a plane of inspiration. We come to rely upon it. Inspiration by receiving. We will know intuitively how to handle those situations. We usually conclude, please highlight the whole next paragraph in pink. We're going to have 6 things that we're supposed to do all through the day in this paragraph. And I see the hands, we'll get around to them. We may stay a few minutes late if you like. But the whole paragraph is in pink, and it contains 6 things that we do all through the day. We usually conclude the period of meditation with here's number one, prayer that we be shown all through the day. Let's underline all through the day what our next step is to be. Number two, that we be given whatever we need, not want, need. We need to take care of such problems. Three, we ask especially, and underline especially, for freedom from self-will. And number four, are careful not to make a request for ourselves. Five, we may ask for ourselves, however, and let's underline this, if others will be helped. That's the proper motive. We are careful never to pray for our own selfish ends. That's 6. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that, and it doesn't work. You can easily see why. And next to that, I've just written, God is not my errand boy. He's not interested in my telling him the things that I want. I've come to believe the hard way that he's not the least bit interested in what I want, but he will take care of my needs, whether I realize it or not. Oh, great. We're going to do this. If circumstances warrant, we ask our wives or friends to join us in morning meditation. If we belong to we haven't done that in a while. Like doing morning meditation together. We got to get back to doing that. Okay. If we belong to a religious denomination which requires a definite morning devotion, we attend to that also. Please underline that word also. Not in place of, also. If not members of religious bodies, and let's highlight this, we sometimes select and memorize a few set prayers which emphasize the principles we've been discussing. There are many helpful books also. Andy, if you'll show me 630 suggested readings. I think it's one of the last ones I sent you. Yeah, there we go. Last year, I think it was, when we did the 11th step, we had like a round table. We brought in Chris Schroeder, Chris Raymer, Jay Stennett, and who? Brad, yeah, that's right. Rob's sponsor. And these came from their suggestions. 24 hours a day is probably the oldest one. Daily Reflections in God's Care is a great little white book, In God's Care. And Around the Year, the one that Michael held up before, written by Emmett Fox. Takes a little bit of concentration. It does, but you'll so read it more than once. That's the solution. Easy peasy. Okay. And you can readily get those anywhere. I think you could probably find it on Amazon, but let's try and wrap this up. There some suggestions about these may be obtained from one's priest, minister, or rabbi. Please highlight the next 2 sentences. Be quick to see where religious people are right. Underline right. And next to it, I've written, they're not always wrong, Howard. Because that's the way I looked at it. If it was organized religion, it's wrong. See where religious people are always right. Make use of what they offer. As we go through the day, please highlight the rest of this paragraph, even through the next page in pink. This wraps up the 11th step. As we go through the day, we pause, underline pause, and write the number 1. And please circle the P in pause. When agitated or doubtful, and ask, circle the A in ask, please, through the day for the right thought or action. we constantly, please underline constantly, remind, circle the R in remind, please. So what we've circled is pause, ask, remind ourselves we are no longer running the show, humbly saying to ourselves, circle the S in saying, please, many times through the day, and you may want to underline that many times. Thy will be done in pink. That's the 11-step prayer. Just those words. We're then in much less danger of excitement, worry, anger, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become more efficient. And again, remember, more efficient if we go back to what our real purpose is, to fit ourselves to be of maximum service and the people to God and the people about us, that our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. He's saying we're now becoming more effective at that. We do not tire so easily, for we're not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. We're not pushing the world around anymore. It's tough to push that around the way we were doing. These are the 11-step promises. Usually at this time, I like to read the prayer for St. Francis, but I want to finish the page first, and then we'll figure that out. And please highlight the next line. It's only 5 words long. It's the shortest paragraph in the book, and it is a promise. So it's in pink. Oh, I left you hanging on something. Yes. Andy, if you could give me 87.3, maybe on the blank part of the page here, write those 4 letters that I suggested. P on the next line, A, next line R, next line S. PARS. And here's what it stands for. We pause and we ask God for direction. We remind ourselves we're not running the show and say many times throughout the day, thy will be done. And if you get good at this, you can go from pause to say. But be that as it may, remember we had Wadat in step 10. We have PARS in step 11. Just helps me remember these things. So continuing, let's finish this page. We alcoholics are undisciplined. Really? So we let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined. So we let God discipline us is in green, because I think that's a must. Makes sense to me. And in the simple way we've just outlined, you may want to underline simple way, and next to it write pages 86 and 87. In this way, what we've been talking about in step 11. But this is not all. There's action and more action. Faith without works is dead. Let's highlight that in pink. The next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12. But let's talk about faith without works is dead. That's the 3rd time in this book Bill has used that.
Step 8. Yeah.
Yeah, step 8. True faith reveals itself in the works that we do, and the works that we do broaden and deepen our faith. Does that make any sense? Someone told me that, and I love it. Let me try it again. True faith reveals itself in the works we do, and the works we do broaden and deepen our faith. I think that's spot on, spot on. And incidentally, faith without works is dead. You know what the opposite is? Work without faith is self-propulsion. Self-propulsion.
Faith without works. Faith without works instead was page 14, the last paragraph in 76. The start of 8.
Yep. The other places where faith without works appears, Kathy pointed out, is page 14, 76. Right? That's it?
Yeah.
Those two? Okay. we made it to the end of this, and there's some stuff that I would have liked to carry out, to go a little further with, but that's okay. I think one of the things that I got from this last few pages is that on page 62, we were told playing God doesn't work, right? You got to stop playing God. Why? Because it doesn't work. Listening to God does. Remember the how and the why of the third step. Right? That victory over them may be a witness to those I would help of thy power, thy will, and their love, and their way of life. We're talking about listening to God and remembering the whys of the third step prayer. I think we'll stop there.